This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. First and Last by Hilaire Belloc. Chapter 35. King Lear. The great unity which was built up 2,000 years ago and was called Christendom in its final development split and broke in pieces. The various civilizations of its various provinces drifted apart, and it will be for the future historian to say at what moment the isolation of each from all was farthest pushed. It is certain that that point is past. In the task of reuniting what was broken, it is the noblest work a modern man can do. The very first mechanical act must be to explain one national soul to another. That act is not final. The nations of Europe, now so divided, still have more in common than those things by which they differ, and it is certain that when they have at last revealed to them their common origin, they will return to it. They will return to it perhaps under the pressure of a war waged by some not Christian civilization, but they will return. In the meanwhile, of those acts not final, yet of immediate necessity in the task of establishing unity, is the act of introducing one national soul to another. Now this is best accomplished in a certain way which I will describe. You will take that part in the letters of a nation which you maturely judge most or best to reflect the full national soul, with its qualities, careless of whether these be great or little. You will take such a work as reproduces for you, as you read it, not only its sentiment but its very rhythm, the stuff and colour of the nation. This you will present to the foreigner who cannot understand. His efforts must be laborious, very often unfruitful, but where it is fruitful it will be of a decisive effect. Let anyone take some one of the immortal things that Racine wrote and show them to an Englishman. He will hardly ever be able to make anything of it at first. Here and there some violently emotional passage may faintly touch him, but the mass of the verse will seem to him dead. Now if by constant reading, by association with those who know what Racine is, he at last sees him, and these changes in the mind come very suddenly, he will see into the soul of Gaul. For the converse task, today, not equally difficult but once almost impossible, of presenting England to the French intelligence, or indeed to any other alien intelligence, you may choose the play King Lear. That play has every quality which does reflect the soul of the community in which and for which it was written. Note a few in their order. First, it is not designed to its end. At least it is not designed accurately to its end. It is written as a play, and it is meant to be acted as a play, and it is the uniform opinion of those versed in plays and in the acting that in its full form it could hardly be presented, while in any form it is the hardest even of Shakespeare's plays to perform. Here you have a parallel with 1,000 mighty English things to which you can turn. Is there not institution after institution to decide on, so lacking a complete fitness to its end, larger in a way than the end it is to serve, and having as it were a life of its own, which proceeds apart from its effect? This quality, which makes so many English things growths rather than instruments, is most evident in the great play. Again, it has that quality which Voltaire noted, which he thought abnormal in Shakespeare, but which is the most national characteristic in him, that a sort of formlessness, if it mars the framework of the thing and spoils it, yet also permits the exercise of an immeasurable vitality. When a man has read King Lear and lays down the book, he is like one who has been out in one of those empty English uplands in a storm by night. It is written as though the pen bred thoughts. It is possible to conjecture as one reads, and especially in the diatribes, that the pen itself was rapid and the brain too rapid for the pen. One feels the rush of the air. Now this quality is to be discovered in the literature of many nations, but never with the fullness which it has in the literature of England. And note that in those phases of the national life when foreign models have constrained this instinct of expansion in English verse, they never have restrained it for long, and that even though the bonds established by those models, the instinct of expansion breaks. You see it in the exuberance of Dryden and in the occasional running rhetoric of Pope, until it utterly loosens itself with the end of the 18th century. The play is national again in that permanent curiosity upon knowable things, nay, that mysterious half-knowledge of unknowable things, which in its last forms produced the mystic, and which is throughout history so plainly characteristic of these northern Atlantic islands. Every play of Shakespeare builds with that material, and no writer, even of the English turn, has sent out points further into the region of what is not known than Shakespeare has in sudden flashes of phrase. But King Lear, though it contains a lesser number of lines of this mystical and half-religious effect than, say, Hamlet, yet as a general impression is the more mystical of the two plays. The element of madness which in Hamlet hangs in the background like a storm cloud ready to break, in King Lear rages, and it is the use of this which lends its amazing psychical power to the play. It has been said, with no great profundity of criticism, that English fiction is chiefly remarkable for its power of particularization of character, and that where French work, for instance, will present ideas, English will present persons. The judgment is grossly insufficient and therefore false, but it is based upon a proof which is very salient in English letters, which is that, say, in quite short and modern work, the sense of complete unity deadens the English mind. The same nerve which revolts at a straight road, at a code of law, revolts against one tone of thought, and the sharp contrast of emotional character, not the dual contrast which is common to all literatures, but the multiple contrast, runs through King Lear, and gives the work such a tone that one seems, as one reads it, to be moving in a cloud. The conclusion is perhaps Shakespearean rather than English, and in a fashion escapes from any national labelling. But the note of silence which Shakespeare suddenly brings in upon the turmoil, and with which he is so fond of completing what he has done, would not be possible were it not that spirit of expansion and of a kind of literary adventurousness present in all that went before. It is indeed this that makes the play so memorable, and it may not be fantastic to repeat and expand what has been said above in other words, namely, that King Lear has something about him which seems to be a product of English landscape and of English weather, and if its general movement is the storm, its element is one of those sudden silences that come sometimes with such magical rapidity after the booming of the wind. The end of chapter 35.